Okay, so the first thing I do is I always make a new layer and set it to multiply, and that's why I do all my color work on top of that layer. And then I use the polygonal lasso tool, which I'm doing here to work around the artwork to get a certain portion of it selected. In this case, his face, and then I'll select my skin tone color, and then I'll use the paint bucket tool to color in that portion of his face like that. Once I've done that, then I'll go in with the same lasso tool, and I'll start blocking in my shadows. The way I do this, I have a Wacom tablet, and I could be doing this all kind of like I would be drawing it, but I've gotten to a habit of using this tool when doing my coloring and stuff. So in any event, what I start doing is I've picked my light source, which is coming from the left side of the image. So I've gone in and now I'm just blocking in the shadow shape. And this technique I use by doing it on this one layer, as far as doing the color on it, I can lasso the portion that I want of the color and then kind of ignore this white space as I'm doing here. And when I paint bucket the shadows in there, it'll only affect the color that I'm paint bucketing on top of. So in any event, that kind of starts blocking in some of the image, and then I'll go in here and take the skin tone out of the eye, get it back to white. There's probably a lot of other ways, better ways to do this, but like I said, this is just how I do it. So now I'm going to go in and work on the hair using the same technique. I'm just going to go in and get the basic shape of the line art, select my hair color, and then use a paint bucket to block in the shape. Every now and then you'll get some bleed over, like you see in some of the hair there, some of the skin tone, which I just clean that up with the pencil tool. And then I continue on and just do the same technique again to add my shadows in the hair. So once I get that done, then I move on to other parts like the arms, and I'll move on to the shirt here in a second. But it's the same, pretty much the same step the whole way around, getting the base color down. Then I do my shadows on top of that, and then from there I'll later show you how I add like shine to the skin tone, to the hair, plastic, metal, stuff like that. And then after that, I might add a texture depending on the picture, and that's pretty much my process. So here I'm, putting in. I've already kind of got the shape of the shirt and putting in a kind of an off-white, and then now I'm going in and putting the shadows on it. Starts to give it more shape, and makes it look a little bit more dynamic. It's more of an animation kind of, if I had to describe it. In this case, when I did the shirt, it kind of took over my guitar, so I just went in and used the lasso tool around it and used a paintbrush to get the red. Then I picked a shadow and then lassoed in my shadow shape, as you can see there, to give the more of a dimension to it. And then here, this is where I'm going in and adding the shine, what I was talking about. So what I've done is I've created a new layer and I set it to overlay. And then I'm picking kind of a white with a little bit of a yellow tint to it. And this is where I use my Wacom tablet to just draw some lines on my image, to just little areas where the light might be a little hot on the face or on the arms and neck, plastic of the guitar, stuff like that. And then once I've kind of got those little highlights done, then I'll go into the next step and smooth them out so they don't look so hard line with the pencil tool. And to do that, I'll go over here and pick the smudge tool. And so I think the hardness, yeah, it's at 0, and then get the size of the brush however you want. And then so what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll just manipulate this straight line to have more direction to it, more randomness, and or I'll curve it or whatever depending on the image. And obviously, you know, you could spend hours and hours and hours cleaning, you know, these images up, but this will give you an idea of the steps that I would go through to get a finished image. By the way, this is an illustration by the great and talented Esteban Valdez, a friend of mine, animator. I worked with him doing sound design on some of his animations, and I use this image as an example, but check out his stuff online. He's an amazing artist. Alright, and in this case, I noticed on the neck it looked a little funky, so I used an eraser to kind of just erase a little bit of that shine off. And then it's a little strong, so I'm going to take the opacity down to about 73 or 78%. And then so from there I usually add a texture to the background, and I had done it with a texture, not this one but a different one, this one here, and I didn't really like the way it looked. I just didn't like it. But what I did was I went ahead and used the lasso tool, polygonal lasso tool, and I went around the edge of my illustration, the line art, to get the shape of the character. And then I had deleted that space so that my character shone through right here. And so once I had that dead space, I just selected that dead space from that texture, went to my new texture, hit delete, and now deleting the old layer shows me my new texture, which is here. So now my character's cut out of it as well. So now I kind of have that. So now I want to kind of put him in a space. So I'm going to create a shadow. And but what I do is I just select the dead space that I had already made right there, and then I'll make a new layer, and then I will once I've made the new layer, I'll fill it with black or a solid color to give me a solid shape. Once I have that shape, then I can use that as the shadow. So once I have that solid color, and I scale it up to the size that I think it needs to be, and I position it where I think it needs to be based on my light source. Like I said, once I get it scaled like I want, then I'll place it and accept the my placement. And then what I'll do is I'll go to that dead space from my texture, and I'll magic wand that space, and then I'll go back to my shadow layer and hit delete, which will remove that portion of the shadow that's on top of my character, thus putting the shadow behind him. Once I have that done, I take the opacity down just so I can see that texture a little bit through the shadow, about 80%. And then that pretty much is the finished image. The only other thing I do is I'll do a new layer, and I'll leave it set to normal, but at an opacity of like 4 or 5%, with like a color like pink or any color I want, green, brown, whatever, and that kind of gives a color on top of both the background and my character, which will kind of blend the two together even more so. But in any event, that's the process.